It's hard to tell exactly where the growth in energy is going to be over the next couple of decades. That's looking pretty far out. We know in general that jobs will grow where you're producing something that consumers are willing to buy. And if you're producing something that has to be subsidized, that says that consumers aren't willing to pay the full price, the full cost. So we shouldn't expect to see too much growth in the short term without government subsidies in those things that are expensive.
When you talk about those things, does this mean wind?
Yeah, right now, if you look at the energy mix, with the relative cost for electricity, for power generation, coal and natural gas with combined cycle plants are the cheapest, something around the upper $70 per megawatt hour. You go to wind and you double that cost. You go to solar, you more than double that cost. And so right now, those things are just too expensive to make it without subsidies. And so you can only expect growth there if we're taxing other people. And that's not good for the rest of the economy.
Isn't it true, though, David, that everything depends on policy? When you look at the nuclear sector, it depends on how much loan guarantee funding is made available for these companies. Or if you look at the natural gas sector, it depends on where hydrofracking regulation goes or does not go. Or for coal, it depends on CO2 regulation. In other words, the government's going to dictate through policy where the flow is.
Yeah, you can say that the government's going to dictate through policy where the energy flow comes and in some sense pretend that all of the energy sources are equal. But that's not the case. We know that wind does not flourish anywhere without subsidies. There's nobody that's providing significant amounts of wind power without subsidies. Same thing for solar, except in very remote, low load situations. We see coal is competitive everywhere it is. All right. Petroleum is competitive for transportation fuels everywhere it is. Natural gas can be competitive without subsidies. Now, the fact that they may get subsidies doesn't mean that they need them. Wind and solar need subsidies.
Is the overriding policy then, or the game changer, going to be carbon regulation or pricing carbon, some kind of market, which seems like it's going to go into effect within the next few years?
Yeah, if they put a significant price on carbon, that will have an impact on the amount of energy we use. Will probably also have some impact on the mix of energy we use. But to drive coal out of the electric market, you have to have a huge price on carbon, something on the order of $50 per ton to really bring in carbon capture, or even more to bring in solar and wind. So primarily, pricing carbon is going to lead to less consumption of energy.
So you're thinking business as usual, essentially, in terms of the growth, that the sectors that have been growing or have been steady or stagnant will remain the same?
We will expect technology in the future to improve the cost of virtually every source of energy, even petroleum. We can get to the really deep petroleum much more easily than we could before. But what is it going to be? My crystal ball isn't there 20 years down the road, so I can't tell you that we won't have some fabulous new battery that will make wind competitive, or that we won't have some nuclear technology that is much cheaper than what we have now and much more scalable. That is, you don't have to have a gigawatt power plant. You can do it in chunks, smaller chunks. So, what we will see is we will see entrepreneurs trying to come up with the cheapest, most reliable forms of energy, because that's what people are willing to pay for. Now, if they can do it with wind and solar, more power to them, and that will be it. If it's through adjusting coal and cleaning that up, more power to them, they'll do that. If it's expanding nuclear, we'll see that. It might be algae. I mean, there are people looking to make money. And if you can make energy cheaper with bio-renewable type stuff, okay, you'll be the Bill Gates of energy.
Final question, David. When you see projections about green job growth, so-called green jobs, obviously from a policy standpoint, you don't agree because of the subsidization and what goes on. What about from a categorical standpoint, in that depending on how you classify what a green job is or isn't, you can probably predict job growth? In other words, it's kind of an X factor in there, a variable.
Okay, defining green jobs is difficult. Even the people promoting them are reluctant to define them. If you're talking about subsidizing renewable energy or energy conservation and saying that's going to create jobs, the trick there is subsidies. If something needs subsidies, that means the market's not willing to pay for it. And so you're taking resources that are valued more than the output. That shrinks the economy. You can create jobs in a particular industry with heavy enough subsidies, but it's at the expense of jobs elsewhere. Now, if you want to define green jobs to include making more efficient refrigerators that people are willing to buy, you know, that's fine. We will see growth there. People want to save money. So if you want to call that green jobs, fine.
But what about a welder who, for the past 10 years, has been working on natural gas rigs or something similar? Suddenly he or she gets a job in a plant that is manufacturing a component for a wind turbine.
Okay.
Same skills, same skill set required for that particular job, but a different product.
The example of the welder as a green job just clears up the problems with defining it. A welder working on a locomotive diesel engine will be having the same skill set, or doing the same sorts of things that he may do if he's welding together components for a wind turbine. Now, why is that a green job in one case and not in the other is a toss-up. Okay.